What have you learned?
I think I learned the past week that I have been operating all the time with a cloud of desire and fear uh, present all the time. So, like everything I have been doing is driven by desire and fear to some extent.
Good insight.
Even the dharma work, that's also still driven by desire and fear.
Fear and desire, yes. Good insight. Good, good, good.
And I was thinking, how can I drop that with my actions or with my operations in the world, and still having a hard time with that.
I'm reminded of a prayer by Rabia, the great, I think she's 7th century, 8th century Sufi saint. Maybe later, I'm not sure. Rabia, Rabia. And she said, Lord, if I desire you out of desire for heaven, bar me from heaven. Lord, if I desire you from fear of hell, cast me into hell. She was radical, that woman. She was very, very highly illuminated. So yeah, that's the struggle, right? In an animal body, which is driven by carrots and sticks, and that's how we're conditioned as well. Fear and desire, or desire and fear in the case of carrots and sticks. That's how educational systems, how religious systems, how economic systems, governments, that's how they control us, how they manipulate us. And so to be free of desire for carrots and fear of sticks, like a donkey, requires something extraordinary from us. And that's the truth of the seeking of truth for its own sake. Whatever the truth may be.
Hmm.
And that's an attitude. Now, every cell in your body has desire and fear. It's part of biology. And so it's a subtlety. And the overall, so the aim should be not to eliminate it entirely, although there are at times when you can. And when you wake up, there's no desire or fear there. There's nothing to desire and there's nothing to fear. But until then, you just have to minimize those as much as possible, or just observe them as they arise, and not be so quick to grab the carrot or run from the stick. So that's where patience comes in, and effort of the paramitas. Patience, effort, a little discipline, but insight also. Because when you realize what you are, then desire and fear fall away.
Hmm.
I remember thinking it was when I heard that I forgot who it was, maybe some Buddhist adept had said that hope and fear had to not be there. And I remember thinking, man, there's no way I'm going to get past hope and fear. But there is a way past hope and fear.
Hmm.
And there's no way for anyone to show you your particular path. But if you're intent on something above, something more refined than carrot and sticks, you will find it. You will find the opening, or the opening will be shown to you. I think that's all I can say at the moment. But that is the struggle.
Hmm.
Now, there may be certain hacks that you can do for particular desires and particular fears. If you're afraid of some people are afraid they're going to get old, sick, and die. Well, they are going to get old, sick, and die. So accepting that is useful in that case. Do you have any particulars or anything concrete we could gnaw on?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think, like, at least like for some time, I feel like I have been doing the things that I should be doing. So logically, whatever I'm doing, I think will continue doing that even without hope and fear. It's just that there is an emotional quality, like a little bit of emotional quality to all the tasks, everything I'm doing. So it's kind of that I will, that logically still makes sense whatever I'm doing, but
That's
this
true.
attached attached emotional energy that I'm doing, that when I observe that, then that reminds me that still it's hope and fear that are attached to all those tasks.
Correct. And to get very, very abstract about it, if a tiger wants to remain a tiger, if a rock wants to remain a rock, if you use the free energy principle, that new theoretical framework, which describes more coherently the boundaries of an organism or a cell or an object. Even to exist, something has to want to exist in a strange kind of way. Now I'm going to Borges, Borges. But you can also go to Karl Friston and you look at that Markov blanket, and there's some energy behind existing. Otherwise, chaos or entropy or dissipation of information, however you want to formulate it, would occur. So you can't escape it entirely, but it can become less of a gross motivator. And then you're less easily conditioned, and you're a freer person. But do you want to give an example or something you want to deal with
Yeah.
something? Go ahead.
Yeah. So I can like talk about my hypochondriac tendencies that
Okay,
I think have gone down significantly since like some time, but
good.
still, so like as an example, like last week I was getting like some symptoms, and for that I was thinking, oh, should I go to a doctor, should I just like wait it out, things like that. So I did do things logically that made sense, like basically I booked an appointment and I'll wait it out until that happens, but still there was an emotional energy of fear that were attached to all of the thinking and the task uh, that
How
I was doing.
obsessive was it?
It
Because
was
sometimes it's difficult to separate hypochondriasis from obsessiveness, and that it
Mhm.
just happens to be focused on the body. For example, let's use the crude analogy of someone who worries that they left the stove on or they didn't lock the front door, right? Classic obsessive type of symptom. They'll ruminate on that and fixate on that and they'll feel fear, right? But
Mhm.
it's obsessiveness manifesting as a fear of the leaving the range on or not leaving the front door locked. So the same thing's true with somatic or bodily fears. There could be an
Mhm.
obsessive element to it. But go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, I think for me it was when it started. So until I got to a resolution, which was the steps I should take, until then the mind was constantly trying to like figure out, okay, what should be done. And once I narrowed down onto the steps, then it let go, like then it relaxed. But until then, until I knew what I needed to do, it was like constant thinking of, okay, like figuring out what to do, because if I don't do that, then there is something harmful is going to happen to me,
True,
or something bad is going
true,
to happen to me.
true. So it's important to, if you have a symptom, to do what's called for, right?
Hmm.
And so none of this freedom from hope and fear, which by the way is pretty advanced, but none of this means that you don't take care of business. So if there's something that needs to be done, if you need to go check to make sure the door is locked, because maybe you have left it unlocked in the past, or maybe you did leave the guest, excuse me, range on, then you make sure that you didn't, right? Or if you need to see a
Hmm.
doctor, you make an appointment,
Hmm.
and then it should go
Hmm.
away. It should go
Hmm.
away. Okay,
I think for me,
go
yeah, I
ahead.
think for me it's the it's the threshold of like when to take action and when to like let it just like write it out. I think for me the threshold is kind of very small. So like when I noticed like, so like the symptom I had was like very if I look back now, it was like not significant, but still it felt like something I needed to take urgent action on.
It's very hard to know in advance.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good.
So,
If it's lessening,
well,
that's
yes.
good.
So that was one thing. The other question I had was about the thing we talked about last time, which was the like the mental boundary, uh, or like the mental boundary that I have for myself. So I was thinking there are two
Before we
kinds
go
of
to that, that's important. Save that. But I think the last tweet, I just tweeted a quote of Krishnamurti. Do you have a phone there where you can read it out? I mean, I didn't
yeah,
just tweet
yeah,
it, but,
yeah, yeah.
and it makes a very interesting point.
Yeah. So this one is find out if the mind is capable of experiencing something that is not a projection of its own demands.
See, so that's okay. So say that again slowly. This is Krishnamurti. I'm
Find
quoting Krishnamurti. If the mind
find out if the mind is capable of experiencing something that is not a projection of its own demands.
Okay, so I recommend that for you.
Mhm.
Okay? Now let's go back to your question.
Yeah, so I was thinking about the boundary of the mind, and to me it seems there are two boundaries. One is physical, and the other one is mental boundary. So, like, let's say when I see
Hmm.
this bottle, if I focus on the mental boundary, it seems like within my bound, or like within my experience. But if I look at the physical boundary of it, that's different. In the same way, when I like I'm interacting with another person, another human being, mentally they feel like within my experience, but physically they seem separate entity than me.
What does this have to do with the size of your mind?
So earlier we were like talking about how everything is within my mind, uh, like in dreams.
Okay, analogous to a dream. All right, go ahead.
So if everything is within my mind, why I why I experience my body and my physical sensations more than, let's say, the body of another person or their bodily or their sensations, if everything is within my mind.
Because the transducers, you know what a transducer is, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's something that converts one signal to another.
yeah,
The
yeah,
transducers in your body are limited. I mean, why don't you hear radar? Why don't you see ultraviolet?
yeah, because body doesn't have the capacity
The
to
transducers through which you're using your consciousness are limited. And conditioned, but okay, let's just say limited for now.
Mhm. So the transducers are present on the body,
Eyes, ears,
which
nose,
are
mouth, tongue, skin, proprioception.
so they are tied to this body that I'm
They appear
experiencing.
to
But
be
the
tied to this body.
oh, okay. So the senses appear to be tied to this body.
Well, no, I guess they are tied to the body. Yeah, the senses are tied to the body that we're referring to.
Mm. Then the other bodies are, or the other human beings are like NPC in my experience.
I hope not. But okay, so there's different ways to look at that. And I'm not sure that's, well, in order to answer that satisfactorily, you'd have to have a deep realization of the nature of reality to answer it satisfactorily. Otherwise, we'll just get into this puzzle of solipsism. You want to look up solipsism?
Yeah. The quality of being very self-centered or selfish.
Philosophically.
The view or theory that the self is all that can be known to exist.
The view or theory that the self is all that can be known to exist. That's an interesting, because they call it a theory, and they qualify it by all that is known to exist. Okay, that's fair enough, but see, that's the problem you get into.
Mm-hmm.
The resolution of that takes understanding of the true nature of reality, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go. Did you dream last night when you slept?
Yeah, I dreamt last night.
Did
Yeah.
someone, was there another person in your dream?
I think so.
Okay, let's imagine there was
Yeah.
another person in your dream. And let's imagine,
Yeah.
did you talk to that person? Did the person say something to you?
Yeah, probably.
Okay,
Yeah.
so in that dream, another person said something to you.
Mm-hmm.
And in
Yeah.
your dream, you were separate from that person.
Yeah.
And in your dream, that person was separate from you.
Yeah.
But who was that person really?
Still, like my imagination.
It was you. Who else could it be?
Mm-hmm.
Your mind. Again, roughly, analogously, crudely. It's really incredible the way it seems like God left us or the design left us enough of a big clue
Mm-hmm.
about the nature of reality by giving us dreams. It's really quite extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it appears that way. So, akin to how you can speak to another person who has another opinion and point of view in your dream,
Mm-hmm.
as you're speaking to me now, you're imagining that we're separate, but we're not.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it would help if you moved from nouns to verbs. We are processes. We're unfoldings.
Mm-hmm.
We're like licks of a flame.
Mm-hmm.
And with the Avatamsaka, you should be able to dial up and dial down the frame rate so you can see things that you wouldn't otherwise see with the flower ornament scripture.
Mm-hmm.
So certain things you can't see unless you put them on fast forward.
Mm-hmm.
And other things you can't see unless you slow them down. So having the mastery of mind in order to change the frame rate when you look at the world, that's a key capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Am I making sense to you?
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
So if you look at a vine with a frame rate down, it looks as if it's a living snake,
Mm-hmm.
right? The way it curls up a trellis or something. But if you
Mm-hmm.
turn the frame rate up, it looks like it's static. And the same thing's true with us. As with mayflies or with cicadas or with vines or with trees. As the AI is soon going to make sure that we know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My next question is about Avatamsaka. So yesterday I have been reading a few pages.
Oh, good. Avatamsaka Sutra, flower ornament scripture, brilliant translation, priceless work. Now in English, folks. What page?
So like, for example, let's say page 217.
217.
Yeah, 217, 217.
Mm. Why don't you read a paragraph, then I'll read a paragraph.
Okay, yeah. Above this, vast worlds as many as atoms in a Buddha field, there is a world called constantly producing sapphire light, bounded by arrays of indestructible diamonds, resting on a sea of various different flowers, shaped like the half moon, covered by clouds of drapes of celestial jewels, surrounded by worlds as many as atoms in 11 Buddha fields. The Buddha is called boundless virtues.
Keep going.
Above this vast world, as many as atoms in a Buddha field, is a world called light shining, bounded by arrays of radiant lights, resting on a sea of perfume of flower swirls, shaped like a wreath, covered by clouds of various garments, surrounded by worlds as numerous as atoms in 12 Buddha fields. The Buddha is named transcending the gods.
One more.
Above this vast world, as many as atoms in a Buddha field, we come to this world called endurance, bounded by ornaments of diamonds, held by atmospheres of various colors, resting on a network of lotus flowers, shaped like space, covered by space, adorned with spherical celestial palaces, surrounded by worlds as numerous as atoms in 13 Buddha fields. The Buddha is this Vairocana.
Baraka. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Good.
So yesterday, as I was reading these paragraphs, they felt pretty like boring, and as
Boring.
I was reading,
I think, yeah, maybe in the beginning, maybe the first time, few times you go through this. Okay, but keep going.
yeah. So as I was reading, I was mainly just kind of
Constantly
reading
producing
that.
sapphire lights, bounded by arrays of indestructible diamonds, resting on a sea of various different flowers, shaped like a half moon, covered by drapes of celestial jewels. I don't know how that could be boring, but okay, go ahead.
So
I
as
am
I was
guessing the beginning, but once you've become attuned to this text, it's not boring at all. But go ahead.
so so as I was reading, what I was seeing that flashes of images were coming up
Good.
when I was reading, but nothing else was going on. So because of that feeling that nothing is going on, it felt boring, and I continued reading through it.
Okay, let me just interrupt for a second. Once this book has gotten to you and your mind is working properly, what you'll instead of being boring, what you'll see is these worlds like unfolding, flowering, worlds upon worlds upon worlds upon worlds. The beautiful description of reality. Uh, and so it's not boring. What it is it's stimulating. I find it stimulating because you could just, and then whenever they say the world endurance, this world is endurance, and the Buddha here is called Varakana, right? And so there's touch points, and there's other ways that when your brain is working freely and not wanting to do
Mhm.
something else or be someplace else or something like that, then you'll find that the boredom goes away. But keep going.
I think probably that's the difference. That wanting to do something else or feeling like wanting to be someplace else. Maybe that's what.
See, that's
Yeah.
the hope and the fear, the desire, and it blocks everything. So so desire, the reason people, people, the reason every religious tradition in its own way eschews, ESCHEWS, or tries to set a limit on desire, is that it's a gross, it's a gross in the sense of being a very crude mental impulse. It's like a pig wanting an apple, or or some animal just wanting to get to the food. And because it's so gross, gross, in other words, it's crude, it blocks the more refined workings of the mind. So they aren't saying get rid of desire just for the hell of it. They're saying get rid of desire because when it's in the way, you can't focus, you can't do anything, you can't think straight. And so you put your finger on something very important, which is if you want to be someplace else, which is totally a human impulse. Have you ever noticed that you'll be doing something you actually want to be doing, and then you're thinking about the next thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's a constant source of human dissatisfaction. So if you can master that and be here now, right here, right now, you'll find that it's a completely different world that you've entered. The world of satisfaction. And and that's another reason why this would seem tedious or boring, is because you want to be someplace else. And that's why, again, I'm not suggesting that you or other folks take 20 minutes every morning and set up a little ritual just for the hell of it. It's that I know that only when something becomes ritualized, not only, but when things become ritualized in this way, then your body and your brain settle into it, and then you don't want to be anywhere else, because it's like you've trained the horse, the donkey, the elephant. So the story of the elephant or how to train an elephant?
No, I don't think I've heard that.
Well, you just tie a rope to the foot of the elephant, and you drive a stake deep into the ground. Let's say it's a 30-foot rope. And so the elephant could only go around in this circle with a radius of 30 feet. And then after about a week or so, you shorten it to 20 feet, and then you shorten it to 10 feet. And then if you want, you shorten it to 5 feet. This takes maybe a few months. Then you just get rid of the rope, and the elephant just stands there. He's been conditioned to believe that that's where he's stuck. And so the elephant's quite content to stand there, right? It doesn't think of going someplace else. And the human mind is very much the same way. So if you can train it every morning to read a little sutra, do a little contemplation, get your head on straight before you start the day, then your body-brain complex becomes conditioned to this period of time, which is peace. Peace is hard to come by these days, especially reliably. And so making a practice of this in the morning and maybe in the evening, you have peace in your life. And your brain's not always thinking, oh, I want to be someplace else. Or I can't wait to get to the next thing. I mean, the brain's horrible. You'd be watching a perfectly good television, well, I shouldn't say television program. You could be doing something totally pleasant, and you're thinking about, well, how do I get to the next thing? Or you'll be asking one question, and you'll be thinking, well, how do I get to the next question? Or answering one in the same thing, right? So it's very, very difficult for the human brain to be satisfied. Have you heard that song, I Can't Get No Satisfaction?
Probably not.
Oh yeah, that's right. I've really dated myself, and that's okay. But you can't get satisfaction unless you're in the here, in the now, like Eckhart Tolle says, or Rupert Spira, everybody, because it's the deal. You got to be. There's no reality except here, right now. But the brain resists that because it wants to go on thinking about, oh, I'm going to get a sweet carrot, or oh my God, I'm going to get hit with a stick. And all of our suffering takes place in the mind. And speaking of hypochondriasis or somatization or conversion symptoms, basically what happens is you're thinking about something that's not there yet, and you suffer. So to obtain mastery of the mind in that way, to where you can just be here now, that is how you stop suffering. Suffering in the here and now is extremely rare in a lifetime. Right? Am I making sense?
You're making sense.
Okay, good.
I've also seen that almost everything I have done, I have enjoyed it and I have also suffered it. And the common theme is that when I didn't have anything anywhere else to go or anything else to do, then it was more enjoyable
Yeah,
than otherwise.
absolutely. So you can, having that knowledge, having that insight, you can build that into your life and have a better life.
Mm,
You know, probably the reason that people, prescribe journaling so much is not because you're going to go back and read your journal and find any great insights, although sometimes that it does happen, but it's rare in my experience. But it's mainly so you stop your day for a
mm,
bit and
mm,
reflect. And I think journaling is probably just a concrete representation of that. So you could do that as
mm,
well, I suppose. There's nothing wrong with doing it. But the point is that to take a period when your elephant mind or your monkey mind knows that it's not going to get to go anywhere else, and then it settles down.
mm, mm.
That's
I
take advice from an old man. Believe me, that's one of the most valuable things you can do to take a hold of your life.
got it. Yeah, I think I can also I can also do a couple of minutes of just dropping things before reading the sutra. So
Yeah.
like dropping, yeah.
Or have some ritual maybe where light some incense, or count some beads, or this is why all these religions, these spiritual traditions have these rituals.
Hmm.
I mean, that's part of the reason.
Got it.
You could have a ritual
Yeah,
prayer
yesterday.
or something like that, but you say, or it really doesn't matter, but what you have to do is instead of having these random habits that pop up any time of the day or night, these random thoughts, you have a period or two periods in the day when you know nothing's going to happen then.
Hmm.
And you're just going to be there in contemplation, in meditation, in sutra reading, taking care of your soul.
Hmm.
It's so hard to get modern people to understand this, which is one of the reasons we're in so much trouble. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah, as I was reading the sutra, I thought, okay, maybe the book is teaching me patience.
It
Then I
is.
realized, yeah, and then I realized that for me, patience probably just means that there's some wanting to have a different experience than what I'm having now, and that is where the patience
We'll see
is
that
needed.
wanting, right? So go
Yeah.
back to the Krishnamurti quote.
Yeah, Krishnamurti quote was, "Find out if the mind is capable of experiencing something that is not a projection of its own demands."
Okay, so that's directly related to this. So the text is not only teaching you patience, it's teaching you discipline, and it's teaching you the right kind of effort, right? And it's providing you with insight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's calming your mind, so there's meditation there of a sort.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what more can you ask? You've got all six paramitas right there in front of you, designed to
Mm-hmm.
to to nurture your brain, your mind. These guys were very, very smart. These women and men who did this.
Mm-hmm.
Later, they became the Sufis,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they had something to do with the training of Jesus, not the training, the education of Jesus, or the development of Jesus as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we're in so much danger of losing the whole thing, like we've lost so many other things.
But isn't like humanity is always like in a cycle where we lose things, but then we start regaining it in time.
Who now could make the aqueducts of Rome? Who now could build the pyramids? I mean, there's many things that we've lost. Who could build a cathedral like a cathedral for the Middle Ages now?
I mean, not like the Middle Ages, but then with the changing world, like new things
Yeah,
will
stripped
come up.
down with no. Have you noticed how the world is getting uglier?
Like if I look back at history, it was always very violent. Like there was like some fighting going on,
Well, that's
some
one.
king
Yeah, that's
fight.
one thing. But I can tell you, in my lifetime, I've watched cities, Boston, San Francisco, Los Angeles, get uglier and uglier and uglier every decade.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's just me.
Mm-hmm.
When was the last beautiful building built in the industrialized world? I'd have to say the Gaudi Cathedral in Spain, and they're still working on it.
Mm-hmm.
But go to southern Spain and go look at the Alhambra that was built by the Moors, the Muslims. We can't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So we lose capacity. So human history doesn't go in a straight line. That's a big myth. After the Romans Empire collapsed, they had 500 years of basically, they couldn't get the water supplies that the Romans
Mm-hmm.
were able to do. They couldn't build. It's very easy, even now, with even in technological things, we lose capacities and we lose
Mm-hmm.
knowledge. That's why the preservation of knowledge is so important. It's
Mm-hmm.
as important as acquisition of knowledge as the preservation of it. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that takes, it's an oral, or it's something that's passed down from a master to apprentice. It's not something you can put into a book because it's alive. It's an alive art or an alive philosophy, a practiced philosophy. And if these are not passed on orally, they're not passed on at all.
Mm-hmm.
So no, do not be under the mistaken idea that we can take knowledge of the past for granted.
Yeah, I don't think like as a human person, I can take it for granted because even among human, we don't like I don't know who will get it or who doesn't get it. But isn't the idea is that secret protects itself? So like even if
That's something different. Go ahead though. What's the question?
so like so like let's say so like in every era like so like even in Hinduism there's a saying that when things get really rough, then the god comes again, and then he comes in the world and then fixes things and sets things right.
After how much? After how many centuries?
Yeah, after a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
in
there's a.
India, 500, 1,000 years, that's no big deal, right?
Mhm.
But in human lifetime terms, 500 years is a long time to wait. And we see this over and over.
Yeah.
Look at China; they destroyed their culture. They burned it to the ground.
Mhm. I mean, definitely at the scale of individual or like individual country, there are things to worry about. But if we look at humanity as a whole, right, then with in a time frame, humanity will be back on track, right? In 1,000 years or 500 years, eventually it will come back, and then the things will start again.
Well,
Isn't
that's
that what?
certainly what we hope, but that's not. I don't think that's what's meant by the secret protects itself. The secret that protects itself, I think, refers to God will let mankind know what God will let mankind know, and the rest will remain a mystery till we rejoin where we come till we go back to where we came from, in a manner of speaking.
Mhm.
So there's certain things that truth will not allow for the human mind to know,
Mhm.
and what you described is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you can't know the hour of your death. That's another one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So these remain mysteries until we become what we seek.
Mm-hmm.
All right, sir?
Mm-hmm. You said one thing that what I said is one of them. What was that?
The secret protects itself?
Yeah. So you said one thing. I said it also means the same thing.
No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that.
Mm.
I think that was that. I think that was that. The secret protects itself, which is a Sufi adage. And by Sufis,
Yeah.
I'm referring to a very particular branch. Probably, if I was to be the most accurate, it'd have to be Naqshbandi. I don't have knowledge of the others in any great depth, but that was certainly an enlightened movement of the 20th century. I don't think we're going to get it back in the 21st, frankly, unless something or someone has that capacity. Very delicate civilization.
I think in the past, like at least in the Eastern countries like India and like other, like even like Muslim countries, there's always been this movement of people going on to like taking journeys for spirituality and stuff like that. But
Yes.
now that is gone missing, and now that's not happening anymore. Even in the Eastern countries. But I'm hoping eventually it will come back. Like
Well,
the
hope is
cycle.
not a plan. I think we can take care. We must take care of the little corner that we're responsible for, which is ourselves, right? And this small group
Yeah.
of people who are trying to nurture this current of truth, this current of truth seeking, in this, in as best we can under the circumstances.
Yeah.
There's no great spiritual movement that didn't start small. And there was no rebirth of a spiritual movement that didn't start small also. It's just the nature of the world. And there's no oak tree that doesn't start this big. Right?
Yeah.
All right. So there is sense in this world, but it takes capacity to see it. And what we're trying to cultivate here is capacity to see. All right, sir?
Yeah. Yeah.
Next question.
I think that thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think to me that secret protect itself also meant that only people who are supposed to know the secret will know it, and other people will not.
It does seem as if there are barriers to entry, let's say. And most people don't want to put in the effort. They just want to be told. They want the carrot and they fear the stick. They desire heaven and they fear hell. But that won't get you to truth. That may get you to some peace in your life. And I'm not disdaining it. On the contrary, I think it's great for many people, maybe for most people, but not for seekers of truth. Okay, sir?
Yeah. I have a next question from this book.
Teachings of Zen? Okay. Now, Zen is based, another nice selection by Thomas Clary. Zen is based on the Flower Ornament Sutra. So this book is based on this book. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so this question is from page 14, but 14 as in XI4, like the Roman 14,
All
like
right.
introduction.
All right.
It's the last paragraph on this page. When we look back on this life.
Why don't you read it slowly?
Yeah. When we look back on this life, we see that when people are born, no one has thoughts of joy, sadness, hatred, or bitterness. Are we not in the state of the Buddha mind bequeathed by our parents? It is after birth that intelligence develops, and people learn bad habits from others in the course of seeing and hearing them. As they grow up, their personal mental habits emerge, and they turn the Buddha mind into a monster because of biased self-importance.
Yeah, that's beautifully stated. Why don't you read another sentence just for fun? It's so beautiful.
The next paragraph or the
No,
same
next
one or the
sentence.
same paragraph? People are born with nothing but the unconceived Buddha mind, but because of self-importance, they want to get their own way, arguing and losing their temper, yet claiming it is the stubbornness of others that makes them sad. Getting
Next, one more
fixated,
sentence. One more sentence, please.
getting fixated on what others say, they turn the all-important unique Buddha mind into a monster, mulling over useless things, repeating the same thoughts over and over again. They are so foolish, they will not give up on things, even if getting their own way would in any case prove to be futile. Folly is the cause of animality, so they are inwardly changing the all important unique Buddha mind into a paragon of animality.
Good, thank you. Okay, what's the question?
Yeah, so I can see that when an infant is born, infant doesn't have thoughts, uh, living in the present. So I can see that how that can be Buddha mind. But then an infant also cries, and infant is not in a happy state because they keep crying all the time, and they shit, they eat like so. Their experience, I I don't see how it can be a joyful experience that an infant is
They
living.
don't have concepts of joy or sadness, like it said in the first sentence. The human infant is born about 2 months early, and the human infant and the mother are actually one creature. And when they're separated from the mother, they have distress. You know, they're born early because this human skull, the skull is so big, it doesn't fit through the vaginal vault, right? So over the years, birth takes place earlier and earlier, and the corresponding maturation would be 2 months later. But in any case,
Mm-hmm.
the mother and the child are an undifferentiated unit as far as the child's concerned. He has no idea of self or other. And if you separate him from his mom, yeah, the body doesn't like that. But that's just the sensation of hunger and a signal to get food to the mother. The baby's not thinking, oh, tomorrow or a week from now, I bet she's going to go, on a vacation and leave me here, and then I'm not going to have any food for like 2 weeks, and I'm going to suffer and die because it's, I can't rely. Those thoughts come later, right? So without the thoughts, they're not. Without thinking, you have pain or you have other sensations. True, but the suffering is mental. And if you look closely at your own suffering, you'll find that most of it takes place in the mind, by far. To the point to where you can reinterpret some physical sensations and they stop being painful. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what's the question?
So even with a Buddha mind, I can experience these physical
Yeah,
sensations,
you can experience pain.
And I'll be reacting to them in that manner, and but I still will have the Buddha mind.
The baby doesn't suffer when he's yelling his head off. He's just doing what he does.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this is just a teaching device, because in the realm of reality, it's different than that. In the realm of reality, It's fundamentally different.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you have a dream and you walk into a room and there's a baby in it.
Mm-hmm.
The baby's screaming. Is that baby in the dream suffering?
No, not because it's a imagination. It's a figment of imagination.
Okay, well, it's a dream baby. Now, let's say you're in a dream and you stub your toe.
Mm-hmm.
Are you suffering?
In a dream, I am experiencing those sensations, yes.
But are you suffering really? No, it's
That's
all in
kind
your
of,
mind. It's all in your mind. You're suffering in your mind.
yeah, suffering in the mind, yeah.
Or there's pain in the mind. There's pain in
Yeah.
the illusory body, and then the mind creates suffering, but there's no real pain, and there's no,
Mm-hmm.
and the suffering is optional. Because you could just as easily dream that you stubbed your toe and there was no pain.
Mm-hmm.
Or there was pain, but it didn't bother you.
Mm-hmm.
You see? You have much more power in your mind than you realize, is I guess the message. Okay, sir?
Okay.
One last
Yeah.
question before we go.
Yeah. The last question, this is from page 2 of the same book, the last paragraph. I'll just read it quickly. It's a short one. Uh, it says, "Do not say the mind monarch is empty in having no essential nature. It can cause the physical body to do wrong or do right, neither being nor non-being. It is concealed and revealed without fixation. Although the essence of mind is empty, it can be ordinary and can be saintly. Therefore, I
It
urge
can be
you to
ordinary, it
guard.
can be what?
It can be ordinary and can be saintly.
Saintly.
Saintly, yeah.
Okay.
Therefore, I urge you to guard it yourself carefully. A moment of contrivance, and you go back to bobbing and sinking. So,
Okay, good. So what page is this?
page 2.
Of the Roman numeral 2?
No, a normal page 2. The second last paragraph.
Okay, so this is written in the 5th century. Okay, I'm going to read this for
Mhm.
myself.
Mhm.
If you cling to emptiness and linger in this is a very advanced teaching for bodhisattvas. If you cling to emptiness and linger in quiescence, you will bob and sink herein. The Buddhas and the bodhisattvas do not rest their minds this way. Great people, so they don't cling to emptiness and they don't linger in quiescence. Great people who clarify the mind understand this mystic message. Body and mind naturally sublimated, their action is unchanging. Therefore, the wise release the mind to be independent and free. So that's the preface, minimum preface to this next statement. Do not say the mind monarch is empty in having no essential nature. It can cause the body to do wrong or do right. Neither being nor non-being, it is concealed and revealed without fixation. Although the essence of mind is empty, it can be ordinary and can be saintly, by which they mean it can be, highly evolved. Therefore, I urge you to guard it carefully. A moment of contrivance and you go back to bobbing and sinking. So this is basically Taoist. See, Taoism met Buddhism in China and created Zen, basically. And so they're saying that the minute you start to contrive, you lose it. So it goes back. Let's go back to that quotation of Krishnamurti.
Mhm.
Read it again.
That was, find out if the mind is capable of experiencing something that is not a projection of its own demands.
And it is. but not if the mind fixates. If the mind fixates, it's projecting its own demand. It's a form of desire or fear. You desire to stay in quiescence. You desire, in quiet nothingness. Or you desire to stay in emptiness. And neither of these positions, again, this is advanced teaching for bodhisattvas, basically, or, Zen masters, that you cannot remain fixed in one or the other because that's the improper use of the mind. Now, what question did you have about it?
Yeah, so here they say that we should not be fixated, but then they also say...
So now, what is hypochondriasis but fixation?
It's a fixation, yeah.
Yeah, what is obsession but fixation?
Yeah.
What is paranoia but fixation? What is undue fear but fixation? Right? What is undue desire for money or for fame or for prestige or whatever? All of those are fixations. And the mind that's fixated is unable to negotiate the extraordinary subtleties of emptiness and our existence here in this marvelous world, which is like a dream world, but it's not a dream world. It's something else. And so when you fixate, it's just like any crude impulse. It blocks being able to see a cloud, really, or being able to see a tree, as Krishnamurti would put it. Is that making sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. But my question
Fixation
was...
and obsession are the enemy of truth.
Yeah. So in the book they also say do not worry about, do not go beyond good and bad too. But here they say that even a slight moment of contrivance can bring me back.
Well, this is as you're balancing quiescence and emptiness. This is in an advanced state. This is referring to an advanced state or stage. You could still kind of use it a bit, but he's talking to advanced Zen masters about how to use their mind once they've understood fully, deeply emptiness, right? And they've mastered quiescence, or able to still the mind. And so what he's warning against is becoming obsessed in either one of those areas. And this happens in Zen. You get these guys or women that have been meditating for 10 years, and they just want to go there and sit there and vegetate. And he's warning them, don't do that. And then you have other people who get lost in emptiness, and they say, well, everything's empty, nothing is real, nothing has inherent existence, so I'll do whatever I want. They get lost in nihilism, right? And this is specifically dangerous, especially dangerous for teachers or advanced practitioners. But at this point, I'm not sure that you're in danger of getting lost in quiescence or in emptiness, either one, okay? So I wouldn't worry about that one too much, except that be aware that what your mind projects is what it wants, whether it's hope or fear, to remain in charge. And at your stage, the antidote is to be right here in the present, right here now, and neither one of those things exists. Because right here now, there's no place else to be, or to want to be, or to fear being. And that's the magic. Now, this book, this sutra, is an aid. It's like mantra practice. It's a way to do this in the modern world where it can't be done otherwise, because people won't sit still long enough. And so this is kind of like a magic potion that can be used in the modern world. Unlike some of these others that turn into just clown shows. Religious clown shows. And there's nothing, I shouldn't say clown shows, but they turn into something less than seeking truth. Okay, sir?
Yeah.
Anything else before we stop?
Let me just see. I think that was... I think that was pretty much it.
All right, sir. Yeah. Hasta la vista, baby.
Oh, thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.